If you're in your 20s, go hook up with that person you shouldn't be hooking up with. Now is the time to give into the urges and desires so that later on you're not resenting yourself or somebody else for it.
Yeah, you want to take care of other women by encouraging them to make reckless decisions now because your 20s are a free pass where you can do whatever you want and there's no consequence. No, that's not how it works. When you're in your 40s and beyond, that stuff compounds. And yeah, you might think, oh, I can hook up with what? Really? If you know you shouldn't be hooking up with a person, that's your answer right there. I have seen people ruin their lives by hooking up with their boss, hooking up with their best friend's husband, hooking up with this person or that person. And no, it's not a free pass. You don't just walk out of that with no consequences. And the fact she's encouraging you to give in to your urges, not every urge should be honored. Sometimes you may have the urge to eat one of those huge, delicious chocolate cakes. Should you do it? No. A slice, okay, maybe, but not a whole cake. If you're in a long-term relationship that's not going well, this is terrible, but you may have the urge to cheat. Does that make it right? Should you do it? No. You should break off the relationship or try to fix the relationship you're in. Urges are normal human things, but doesn't mean we should be giving into them. And I always find it funny because the women that make videos like this, I don't know how old they are. I don't know their age. But they always look super young. Like they haven't had the chance to actually see the consequences of their choices yet. So they shouldn't be giving advice to maybe their fellow age group or people because they haven't seen the results of that. Also, there's a big difference between repressing your desires and having just general restraint. You can realize, okay, I have a desire, it exists, it's here, I don't like it, but you choose restraint because you know the consequences will be awful. There's a difference. And having that restraint actually boosts your self-esteem and can help prevent you from making massive mistakes in your life. Also, she acts like resentment only comes from not doing it. Resentment can come from doing it. I know countless women who have hooked up with a lot of people or slept around and they have so much regret from it because it's destroyed relationships, their ability to bond. Sometimes you become attached to people that you maybe not wanted to. Like I've seen people where it's like the woman was talking about how horrible this man was and she, for some weird reason, hooks up with him and then she's attached to him. And she never liked him to begin with. She knows he's wrong for her, but she's still attached to him. Women become attached to the people they do that with. And that's something that's not talked about enough. Literally, our bodies are just built that way. So it's not a game you want to play with yourself. Also, that man might become attached to you. And then what? You just get to hurt his feelings? I've also noticed a lot of women that have this type of mindset when they're in their 20s. What ends up happening is a lot of the other women in their 20s who take relationships seriously, who are marriage-minded, they end up finding an amazing man, they get married, they have choices, whether they want kids or not, whatever it is, and they end up very happy long-term. And then these women, they enter their 30s or 40s, and they're still single, they're resentful, they're miserable, they're jealous of these other women who already have their life set up, and they can't figure out the difference. And the thing is, you can go on lots of dates. You can get to know a lot of people. Like if you're single and you want to get to know a ton of people, see what kind of options you have, great. You don't need to sleep with them or go to the bedroom. And I mean, there's potential health consequences, pregnancy. Like, do you guys forget about that? Also, you become less attractive to the men who will want a long-term relationship and potentially marriage. A lot of men do care about kind of how you present yourself and how easy you are in that way. And I know that's controversial to say, but that's the reality, and it's a perfectly valid preference. And no, not all men have this preference, but quite a few do. So I've rarely met a man that's like, man, I wish she had more experience in the bedroom. Most men are like, oh, she's inexperienced? Cool. Or even maybe he's a little indifferent to it, but it's like, okay, cool, I can teach her what I like then. Also, I hate how this is often being painted like being true to yourself. Who you are in this very moment and your urge is not your whole self. And you don't know who you're going to be 5-10 years down the road. And your older self may not agree with the decisions you're making now. This is why I think it's so important to constantly ask yourself, okay, do I think older me will be okay with this? What do I think I will want? And obviously the answer will not always be accurate because you genuinely don't know. I don't agree with all the decisions I made at 18, but I at least considered that even as an 18-year-old, and I'm grateful for a lot of the decisions I ended up making because I did consider that. Also, getting it out of your system doesn't often work. What ends up happening is it becomes an addiction. It's something you're constantly doing. I know people who they cannot be loyal no matter what relationship they're in. They're constantly cheating. So that's, again, why you should never develop the habit in the first place. You should treat things like, okay, that is not something I will do. It goes against my beliefs. It goes against my values. And I'm not going to change that. It's not a button or a switch you can turn off and on and just make that decision for yourself. Also, if you're constantly doing this and chasing novelty type of relationships, long term, you're not going to be able to have a healthy relationship, because the reality is healthy relationships can be a little boring sometimes. That's just reality. You're talking about chores or doing dishes or cooking or what you're having for the next week for meals. You're packing stuff. Healthy relationships can be boring. And if you're addicted to novelty, you won't be able to have that long-term relationship. And I see this happen with a lot of women who have done stuff like this. They are no longer capable of having a good relationship anymore. Because as soon as he gets boring, she convinces herself that that's a bad man and he's not right for her. And then she leaves him and finds somebody else. And the same process happens again and again.